We need to keep that.
You are looking
at
at
that. Print that out and let's frame it.
You have been
'Cause
doing
that's
great.
The only,
Well, you're clear. I mean, so you're clearly bulking up, right? Because you got the you brought the Dunkin' today.
I did.
So
I brought it for all you guys in the,
really?
in the discipleship
That's
class.
exciting. I was going to ask if you're bulking or cutting right now. You know, that's the.
Deb and I have been coming up and working out.
That's true. Oh,
Couple of
that's right. I
nights.
keep seeing you. I keep
Yeah.
putting it in you. I'm always like jogging with Harper.
You know, I saw a guy the other day that said the older you get, do less weight but more repetition.
Sure. Yeah, keep the muscles warm. You got to keep the connective tissue.
So,
That's really the priority.
You know. Anyway.
I've been reading some of that too. You know, I'm getting up there in age. My 39th birthday is coming up.
You're just a child.
Aged.
Just a child.
Aged.
My daddy would say, just a child. Just a child.
You got your traveling clothes on today.
I do.
Yeah, you're
I'm
you're
gonna wing
heading
my
far
way out of
town.
here.
Yeah.
I'm headed out to Switzerland, Lucerne.
Is that really where you're going? That's amazing.
I'm going to Lucerne. We'll fly into Zwingli. You see what's on my mind. Zurich, where Zwingli preached. And I want to get down there. My wife has already said, okay,
Yeah,
you
Jared,
can do that.
get this nonsense out of here.
You can bribe the driver of the bus to see if he'll take you down that way.
So is his historic church still there? Like with
Yeah.
the walls all still white and
Oh, yeah.
everything? It's just
Yeah.
That's really that guy's so interesting.
Fascinating. And there have been 2 new books out on him of late, but Timothy George wrote, what I consider to be the classic on the Reformation, and he looked at characters, and one of those was Zwingli, which I read over 25 years ago, and it really started me into the Anabaptists.
Oh, okay.
Although he is a Zwingli scholar, for sure.
George is, for sure.
Dr. George.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he thinks about the Anabaptists. I told him about my dissertation. We went out to lunch, and I was telling him about my dissertation. He was very, encouraging and supportive and all that kind of stuff. But most Baptists have not a real favorable view because they've listened to everybody. They've listened to marginal historians on the Anabaptists. They don't realize how impactful that they have been on current Baptist thought.
Well, I mean, and also the movement was so broad and it cropped up at different times.
It was so short-lived. They killed them all.
They did.
They literally killed them all.
They had to die so Baptist thought in the future might live. So your thesis is that Zwingli ushered in more of the Anabaptists coming up?
I looked at Hubmaier and how Hubmaier influenced the hermeneutics of Baptists today.
Okay. I thought we were still talking about Zwingli. I got off
No,
track.
but it was out of Zwingli's church that
it is.
Felix
Okay.
Mons and Conrad Grabel and
okay.
these guys really took serious the Swiss Reformation, and they came back. They went. One studied Hebrew, Kirkwood. One studied Greek.
Absolutely.
Me. So
Two
here
roads
we
diverge.
are. We are.
Coming back
the
together.
Reincarnation, so to speak,
Yes.
of Conrad Grabel and Felix Mons.
Man.
Anyway, they came back to Zwingli and said, you've not taken this thing. This Reformation has not gone quite far enough, which is what the Anabaptists wanted to do.
Isn't that so interesting? It seems to happen because Zwingli was pretty hardcore. A lot of the stuff that people ascribe to Calvin was actually Zwingli coming on the back end.
Yeah, you had Luther in Germany and
Right.
Zwingli, and they both did this almost at the same time without knowing what the other was up to.
Sure.
So it's kind of interesting to look historically and see God's got this and he's got it here and he's doing it here, and eventually it's going to impact all of this area.
And so Zwingli's doing all this, and he's radical in what he's doing, and then his disciples are like, no, you didn't even go far enough.
Yeah, he had those
interesting.
men in his congregation said, look, you can't find infant baptism in the New Testament.
Oh boy.
And so that was
He said it on air. He said
that's
it.
the dividing line right there.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little more intense, how arguments go. It gets a little more intense from that. Even Zwingli I think Zwingli certainly had, I believe, the Lord's Supper far more New Testamentally correct than Luther did. And they had a conflict. Of course, yeah. Luther was just. I think Luther really broke his health in his young age, and he became. They talk about him being so anti-Semitic, and
his mind was kind of.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think in his old age, he had so abused himself physically in his youth that he was a very sick man in the latter part of his life.
It is a shame, but it's also interesting.
See, y'all say that about me. See, I'm so ripped. Y'all say, man, he just abused his body.
No, we won't.
And his mind went in his old age.
Well, you've stayed away from beer, which Luther didn't do. So I think you're going to be fine as you age. Yeah. But that's another thing with Luther, because you that's another thing that people, like you talked about the marginal historians. Like a lot of people don't remember like how methodologically Catholic Luther still was. Like the service still looks so similar. Like his whole thing was justification by faith, and he tried to then tease out all the implications of that. But like the church services were still, there was a lot of similarities, and then you have Zwingli, other side, like, no, we got to get rid of even more of this.
Yeah, and baptism too. Even though I love Lutherans, for Lutherans, when they still see a little something of that's salvific in baptism.
Right.
Some little part of that is it, but I look at like Luther with the Lord's table and with baptism, things like that, and I just say, my stars, look at how far he went.
Yeah.
You give him a little bit of break that he didn't get everything.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm not.
So, no, I know. But, a lot of people do. Oh, well, Luther, listen, look at how far he came.
You can only do so much in one lifetime.
Yeah. And you're right, it was instilled in them. It was so instilled in them, this Catholicism.
Well, I think about that all the time, just who we are now, and I think, watching my kids grow up, just when you're swimming in a particular sea of the culture around you, and the Catholicism was to be able to get your head above water and actually have any like Luther's head was above water. By the time a couple more generations, then they're on a pontoon boat. They're way above it. They're seeing more. But then, ironically, you get to a point, and this has happened multiple times. People make shipwrecks of their faith because then you start swimming in a different theological sea, methodological sea, and then you're doing something wrong again. Which that was something that I don't know if I've ever asked you this before, but what do you think? Like it is mind blowing to me the way that at Luther's time, Calvin as well, the Anabaptists obviously, they would burn people at the stake or drown them over the mode of baptism or the practice of the Eucharist. Uh-huh. And now it's like we've got a Presbyterian church on Valleydale Road, the Christian church of it. We've got the Reformed Baptist right across the way, and now it's just like we peacefully coexist. Like I don't even know how to process that. I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, it is. It is. When you think about it, it is because Zwingli, whom I have a great love for Zwingli, and as well as Luther, but Luther not so much as Zwingli, and Calvin and all. Calvin married an Anabaptist.
I didn't even know that.
But he's out there killing them.
That's like the biggest, that's his biggest controversy.
And so you kind of look at that stuff and scratch your head and think, boy, I bet he and his wife must have had some really.
Well, yeah, don't look at me. You're the one that married a Presbyterian.
So I did. And you cannot drive it out of her.
All right.
I've tried casting it out of her. But you will not.
No, she's using those dogs as a Horcrux for the Presbyterianism. That's what she's doing.
Oh gosh, she is an associate reform. She goes all the way back to that Scottish Erskine, who was. But they are so biblical. I mean, they hold tenaciously to the Word of God, especially the ARP. They're so conservative, and I'm thankful. Boy, I'm thankful for that woman. Good night.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? It was really beautiful because yesterday we had coffee with the pastors, and I was just so blessed. I was standing outside the cafe. I'm usually there just wave at people because, they only want to talk to you, which doesn't hurt my feelings except a little bit. So they all walk into the cafe, and man, and there were so many young families that came to talk to you, and I'm just watching you and Miss Deb talking to them and welcome them, and that was really special.
It is. And yesterday was special too, to see Patrick baptize Connor.
Wow.
That was a great moment for the church. Connor's kind of like,
he's like a mascot. I mean,
I was going to say that. As like a
forefront.
mascot, I was going to say he's kind of like Mr. Valley Dale.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
He's the face of the church. And everybody loves him.
Everybody loves him.
I meant to tell everybody, you know what he calls me?
What does he call you?
He calls me Pastor Winston Churchill. He does. Connor calls me Pastor Winston Churchill. Hey, Pastor Winston Churchill.
And he does it complete without any irony.
Yeah, and he loves, his dad's got a big, cut out thing of Churchill in his office at home. And first time I got over there, he said, come in. Let's stand here on either side of Churchill and take a picture, Oh, God.
Patrick cracks me up because he's got this bust of Winston Churchill right next to a bust of Michael Jordan. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, these things are, there's some kind of cognitive dissonance happening here. Yeah, it's two goats. Two goats happening here. Connor, so it was like a month ago. I said this even from the platform yesterday. I'm like getting ready for church. Connor always comes up, shake my hand. I'm, give him a big hug. What's up, bro? How's it going? And every week he asks me to play Living Hope, and he wants Miss Joanna to sing it. And so I think that's coming, but instead he holds up this little bag, and he's like, got my clothes, I'm ready to be baptized. I look in there, and there's a towel and some clothes. All I could think is, your mother is the one that organizes all the baptisms, and I know she hasn't said anything to me. So
that was just really neat yesterday.
Oh yeah, it was great.
It was so funny when Patrick said, we thought maybe it was about time when he brought his clothes to church. And it was time. It was right. It was the right time, and what a great time that was.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I don't know how Patrick, he's just so constant. He just gets right through it. I don't know how he did it without crying. I'm up there on the piano crying. I'm not even looking at him and I'm crying. But he made it right through. So yeah, it was a good day. What else did we have going on yesterday? That was
that young lady that sang first time. New young lady that had
Bethany
a
Peppers,
voice.
Gorgeous voice. Yeah. Bethany Peppers, she and her husband Garrett they've been at the church for like 3 years now.
Have they really?
Yeah, they have, and they've really plugged in. Garrett's serving on the tech team, very, very consistent,
now, which one is he?
Very helpful.
He's usually upstairs in the booth.
Oh, he's
he
upstairs.
serves up you don't see him too much, but he's up there, and she serves as her job is, she's a choir director. I think it's at a middle school.
Is he the guy in the booth that every Sunday when I go to preach, he's there going,
It's probably Winston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Winston,
sticking his tongue out, making
Winston.
faces.
Winston's got seniority. Winston can do whatever he wants. Been in the church for 35 years. Do whatever he wants. But yeah, she's been attending choir faithfully, and she just.
Good. She's got a beautiful voice.
Oh yeah, great voice.
I thought she did a great job. She looks just like, who is the little girl that played in E.T.? Now grown up.
Drew Barrymore?
Yeah, she looks like Drew Barrymore to me.
I'll have to think about that one, Pastor.
She does to me a little bit.
I don't know if
I
I'm ready
looked
for
back
that
there in the
comp.
choir to see if I was going to see E.T. pop his head out.
Maybe if
What did you say?
was wearing a space Star Wars.
Oh my God! Oh, Michael Niff, if he's back there. Dude, I loved the movie E.T. when I was a kid, and my wife will not let me show it to the kids. She's like, "That scared the living fire out of me when I was a kid. You're not going to show that
really?
to the." Yeah, I was like, I don't recall ever being scared of that movie.
We were down at Universal with Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
And the E.T. ride was just
Yeah, oh yeah.
Have you been on that? You get in the bicycles, and
I never got to do that.
Fly over the.
I did the Back to the Future
Well,
one,
Mom and Dad were behind. Deb and I were here. The kids were up in, seats, and Mom and Dad were behind me. And that thing lifts up, and I hear my mama going, "What?" I said, "Mama, just look down."
Yeah, you're
said,
only like
the
a foot
floor
off.
right
You're
there.
only a foot off
You're
the
not
ground.
going but 6 inches off the ground.
Those rides are cool. They just keep getting more and more advanced.
They are. It really, really a neat ride. But anyway.
I feel like I'm on I like my paternal clock is ticking because I know I only have so long to show these old movies to the kids before they get older and they just think, oh, that just looks like an old movie.
Well, they'll throw them out. There'll be something in them. Oh, no, we can never show that again.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
yeah, that's it. That is just so frustrating.
Yeah. So, hey, NFL last night, terrible.
Yeah,
terrible.
I'm sorry about that. I should have
The Cowboys just what?
It's just terrible, man. I agree with you.
I don't know why they just don't cancel the rest of their season.
That was just a good old fashioned butt whooping, is what that was.
Then,
In Dallas.
Then the guy, they're in Arlington, and then I can't remember their receiver who broke his leg last night.
CeeDee Lamb?
No, for Detroit.
Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Oh, for Detroit. Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was really sad too.
I didn't dare go back and look. They said we're not going to rerun it's just ugly. It's just terrible, So I didn't dare go back and look at it because I just didn't want to see it.
I didn't see the game. But I saw a couple of the highlights, and the play calling looked really disrespectful. Like the Lions with all the hook and ladder and all the razzle dazzle stuff. Yeah, they were. They
got a gutsy coach.
Yeah, what's his name?
He's
Dan something.
It's
Dan Campbell.
Fourth and
15,
and he's going to go for it.
It's a gutsy call, Jim. Gutsy call.
So.
It's always gutsy if they make it, and then you're an idiot if you don't make it.
Yeah.
And that's the what was it that Al Pacino says? How football is a game of inches. Sports is so interesting to me in that way. Like, it's gutsy and you're a legend if you make it, but you're an absolute scapegoat if you don't. And these things decided like that.
I don't know why. I don't think they should sign him to it. Well,
they already did.
I know.
It's done.
It's just ridiculous.
Enjoy the next 5 years. Sorry, that was mean. I apologize.
I don't know why they did that. I'd have to go with somebody else. He is not a franchise quarterback.
Well, this is why we can't put our faith in football. This is the thing.
That's a good thing.
Every time the Ravens lose in the playoffs, which at least they're making it, but every time the Ravens lose in the playoffs, my wife is like, you just need to cool off. This is not. I'm saying it's my wife. It's usually me talking to my wife, and I'm talking to myself, saying, just need to chill. Like, you shouldn't let your heart get so attached to the football team.
Do not let your
But that's
heart.
easy for me to say because the Ravens won yesterday and they looked really good.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank
you're welcome.
you for that.
I'm just coming from a position of great strength. Just,
You are. What can I say
just
at this
point? I'm sorry about I'm sorry.
It's miserable.
It is. Hey, well, you could join. You do what I did last year. Become a Broncos fan. Right? Is that what I did last year? Or was it 2 years ago? We're both. Oh, both of us were Eagles. That's right. It was 2 years ago. Jared and I, we both became Eagles fans. Well, and my son, they just finished the flag football season.
Yeah.
And my son was on the Jets, so I was trying to show my support. So I bought a Jets hat online. Man, everybody made fun of me for doing that. That was just a mistake. I shouldn't have done
Boy,
it.
talk about somebody that was full of wrath when they left out of there. That coach.
Yeah, getting fired immediately. I should have known because.
Did you see his interview?
No.
Oh my stars!
Did he go scorched earth on everybody?
He sure did, man. He was calling down Old Testament wrath on everybody. I'm telling you.
Well, speaking of the Old Testament,
you thought the ground was going to open up and swallow the.
We need to get to the text then.
Yes.
So Genesis 40, and we went ahead and we read the whole account of the dreams.
Yeah.
Which is good, and that's important. You took us through the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker.
You don't know how many times I came so close of saying that. So many times I just when I would say the baker and I would catch myself saying the candlestick maker.
Even starts.
And then
with
I would go to. I had to stop and think the cupbearer, not the candlestick maker.
The cupbearer, and so the cupbearer gets restored. The baker does not, and the cupbearer forgets Joseph, and that was one of the most important points that.
Yeah, that was the last point, verse 23. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him, which was the one thing that Joseph really ask anybody to do for him.
Yeah.
Just remember me, keep me in mind. When you get to Pharaoh, keep me in mind. Just whisper in his ear, there's this kid that is unjustly jailed down at, Potiphar's jail.
Well, and that was when I wrote that down in my notes, how that was one of the most effective. I like it when you help us get inside the head of the biblical characters, and you personified what that must have been like for Joseph. He makes his one request, like this is his one stab at freedom.
Yeah.
And then just waiting by the door, when is that guy going to remember me?
He says, please do me a kindness. Now, he didn't say it, but I'm certain in his mind, I've done all these kindnesses to you.
Yeah.
I've been so kind to you. I've waited on you. I've gotten up every morning to check on you. What could I do for you? What can I get for
Interpreted
you?
your
All of
dream.
this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then finally, brought you the word that you wanted to hear. You're gonna be restored as if you had never been removed. But he goes out and he forgets him. And it's so typical of us.
Oh, that for sure. It's very
So
relatable.
typical of us. How many times has somebody done something for us that really was just a benefit and a blessing, and we get beyond that moment, and months down the road we remember, oh gosh, I never even said thank you. Every once in a while on one of these news shows, you'll see them interview somebody like a fireman who saved somebody's life.
Yeah.
And this person goes on and does this and this and
Yes.
this and this. And they ask the fireman, well, did they ever thank you? Did they ever say, well, no, they never did. They never even turned around and said, thanks, guys. It's kind of like the 10 lepers with the one
for
who
sure.
turns around and comes
Yeah.
back to thank Jesus.
To thank Christ. Well, there's a sense but you also hear from the firefighters, the army servicemen, that sort of thing. Like there's a sense they just understand it's their duty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they're not in it because they're looking for. But it's always appreciated.
Yeah.
I saw this video this morning. It was like going around on Twitter. It's of this doctor who has a baby that's born blue, and like it's just this 4-minute video of him just like, here's the oxygen, here's the infant. The CPR, and it's like 2 minutes, you're just waiting, and then finally the baby breathes.
Yeah.
And the doctor smiles, and it's going to be okay. And all I could think of was like, this kid is never going to know, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, this kid is never going to know that someone saved his life at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like an entire life is going to be lived because of this 2 minutes he
Yeah.
spent on the table.
Yeah.
And that relates back to what Joseph is doing. I mean, he can't. Eventually, the guy does remember him, and you'll get to that this week, or in 2 weeks from now. But and then Joseph is essentially co-king over Egypt, and it really comes down to it's just because he spent those few minutes interpreting that dream that one day. Like that one kindness is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
The tectonic shift of all that. But anyway, I skipped to the end. Sorry, I didn't mean. What else did you want to tell us about?
Well,
yesterday?
to me, that kind of comes after I have done all of these things to say, look at how faithful. Look at this kid walking by faith. Look at this kid whose faith is growing. All of these things. These are the things you need to do when you're in the place of preparation, when you're waiting. And then you get to this, and you find out he is not perfect. Even though in his mind he would not have said, no, I'm depending on the cupbearer, but he was. If you can just do this, you can get me out of here. And God wants him to no, let me pull you back now, and let's just get this lesson understood really well. It's not going to be anybody but me that gets you out.
Man, you'd think that he'd have already learned the lesson.
Well,
if
you
that
think
was
we
enough.
would? Don't you hate going back to school in God's university? I do. I have to go back and relearn lessons that I should have gotten down ahead of time, and I find myself back. Why didn't I learn that last time? And I find myself praying, God, just hurry this lesson up. Let me get through it. I'm going to remember it this time. And listen, I'm here. The good thing is that in the Word of God, we are told that He knows that we are but dust.
Yes.
He knows how frail we are.
He knows our frame. He remembers we are dust.
Yeah.
It's in the Psalms. Yeah, come back to that one. have come back to that one a lot.
I think about that a lot too with my own personal life.
Well, it's interesting because that is also tempered with the fact that even though he knows we're dust, like he still loves us. He still cherishes us.
He does.
He still gives us the blessing of taking the time to teach us these lessons.
Yeah.
And that's something, you just said personal life, that's something that I'm working through. Is just, I think in our...
Well, how can I help you?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Turn the camera. I think it's interesting in our personal walks, how often, take your time.
I'm going to do psychoanalysis.
Yeah, let's say, Jared,
On
get a couch in here next
Can
week.
Have you got plenty of room on this thing?
I think this is. I'll try to say this quickly. It seems like people will trend in different ways depending on the personality of the Lord, who the Lord has made you to be.
Yeah.
You'll have just a different default view as you look at the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And like there's some people, and I talk to them a lot, like they just can't believe the love of the Lord. They're constantly like, the Lord loves me, like I'm part of His family. And like I know that to be true, but so often what I feel, right, when I'm speaking to the Lord is just like the majesty, like the Lord of the cosmos. Like I'm just dust. I can't believe it. The thing is, both are right. Yeah. The Bible presents both. So I think that's an interesting thing to remember.
Yeah, it is, and I think what we've been through has a lot to do with that.
Yes.
I think of the same thing, Kirkwood. I am always awed at the majesty of God, the greatness of God. I fear.
Yes.
Displeasing the Lord, doing what is not right. Even though I do it, I live in a fear that I've offended God but then I have to make myself go back and say, that if we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us all of our unrighteousness. And sometimes I have to remind myself of the love of God.
You even quoted, it was John 16:33 yesterday, which is just one of those, that's the take heart,
I go to
I've
that an
overcome
awful
the world.
lot too, man, don't,
That was really
in
helpful.
the world you're going to have in me, I've spoken these things to you, that in me you might have my peace. I love that in me you might have peace. I'm not going to find that anywhere else, but that in me, in Christ, I'll find. But in the world, you're going to have tribulation. You just might as well face it.
It's interesting that you phrased it that way, because this morning as I was praying through that, what I was trying to meditate on is like, you have overcome the world, even the parts of the world that have made their way into me.
That have overcome me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're overcoming the world in me, and that was just, I had just a great thankfulness thinking about that.
Luke writes this in Acts, where he says, through many tribulations we will enter.
Yes, that's true.
The kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. So it's a fact. You're not going to get away from it, and that's what I really wanted everybody to pick up yesterday was, look at this kid just grows through just grace. He just seems to have an expanded grace for every new opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to kind of spin his wheels right here a little bit, but God's going to get him back on track. He's going to get back on track. He's so human. That is so human. That is so us. And I'm glad to see a little bit of the humanity of Joseph in the midst of this sterling example of faith that he is.
Well, isn't that we've talked about this before, that's the beauty and the uniqueness of the Bible.
Yes.
The Bible only gives, it'll show, wow, Joseph's a great guy, but he's not a God guy.
Yeah.
Whereas, you can look at other, Near Eastern ancient histories, and what do they only record? Well, the king was always like a god.
Yeah.
You need to follow this guy because he's basically God. And that's not what we see the characters in the Bible. Yeah. Like the only immortal, perfect one is the God that Joseph follows.
Yes.
So you talked about the challenges that he has coming up. Mm-hmm. You're going to jump into those when you come back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're going to look at Pharaoh's dream and how he interprets that, and what the dream means. Behold, 7 years of great abundance are coming in all the land, and after them 7 years of famine will come, and the abundance will be forgotten. The famine's going to be so severe that the incredible abundance will just be forgotten because the famine is going to be so great.
Wow.
And yeah, he puts together a plan. He tells Pharaoh, this is the plan you need to put together. He gives it to him before Pharaoh gives him the job.
Yeah.
He says, this is what you got to do. You're going to have to take 20%, a fifth of everything, store it up, put guards around it. And he literally saves the world, the then known world,
Sure.
the world that they're living in. All of the countries and the nations around them. Joseph, the people of all the earth came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe in all the earth. So
that's what's coming up. You've already
Yeah.
started working on that. That's going to be on the 27th, and then you told us yesterday like a preview of what's coming up like in November.
yeah, and on the 3rd, I'm just going to take that whole thing that we went through so many weeks with so many different groups, and I'm just going to consolidate that to a great extent, and I'm going to show how God has blessed us over the last number of
Joseph
years.
Project,
yeah, and then what we need to do. How can we be faithful with all that God is giving to us right now?
That's
People,
great.
not just people. How can I be faithful? What is the way that I am faithful to a congregation? Give them the word. That's how I can be faithful to them. As well as pastor them, to the best of my ability to pastor them, to care for them, to take care of them, to help them learn how to shepherd one another. So how are we to be faithful with all the stuff God has poured into our hands here? So that we show we're devoted to God. God, we're not taking this stuff for granted. We want to be faithful to it. So we want to prepare to train even more people.
Yes, that's the idea.
Unless I train them, I can never get them into missions. Unless I train them, I can
Right.
never get them into sharing the gospel. Unless I train them, I can never grow them to the point to where they're going to live on mission every day.
Stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to do that. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. I'm excited you're going to get some time to rest.
Yes,
got
I am too. I've got so many books. I hope Debbie doesn't see this before, because she's always, please don't load up with books and tote that bag. She doesn't want me to tote the bag because of my back. It's going to hurt
Your
your
back's
back,
doing
okay?
great.
I know it is. But she's my wife. Anyway, I have to say, in spite of it, I've loaded up, man. I've got some books that I'm just anxious to read.
Oh, you're anxious to read. I was going to say, you got nothing to worry about.
I'm going to get on that plane this afternoon. I'm just going to crack open and start.
And then, and if things aren't looking good with the election, you're just going to stay in Europe?
I'm staying over there.
You're just going to
I've decided I'm gonna just pick me out a place and stay.
That's so silly. Just kidding.
I'll
We're
come
just
back.
fooling
I'll be
around.
like Bonhoeffer. I will come back
Yes.
to lead the people.
Into the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, it's been
And
fun.
they'll probably kill me at some point.
It's been
Like
your
mine.
words, not mine. It's been fun spending time with you guys today. Get an extra cup of coffee on us. Say goodbye, Pastor.
Goodbye, Pastor. He's able to hold it. Let me see if I can even get mine.
Get it up there.
I can't do it. I can't even straighten
Don't
that
pull
knee
a
out.
hammy.
They gave me a shot in this knee.
Is that
and
right?
Swanee, I've got worse trouble in it now.
Oh no.